You ever buy a house thinking you're finally escaping chaos, only to realize you just moved right next door to it? That's pretty much what happened to me. I'm Mark Dillon, retired cop, 30 years in the city. I'd seen enough noise, politics, and midnight sirens to last 3 lifetimes. My wife Jenna and I wanted quiet. Birds, lawns, peace. So we bought a place in Maple Grove, one of those neighborhoods that advertises tranquil living. It came with a 2-car garage, a patch of grass, and, of course, an HOA. Running that HOA was Karen Temple. She wasn't a bad person exactly, but she wore authority like it was a designer handbag. Clipboard, pearls, permanent smile stretched so tight you could hear it hum. You know the type, someone who introduces herself with her title. I'm the HOA president. Yeah, we got that, Karen. I figured I'd stay under her radar. I skipped the HOA directory, left my rank off the welcome email, and planned to spend my Saturdays mowing the lawn, maybe tinkering with the only thing that ever truly relaxed me, my dad's car. A 1969 Mustang Boss 429, candy apple red. She's not just a car, she's a memory on 4 wheels. My old man bought it new, paid cash, polished the chrome until you could practically see heaven in it. When he passed, it became mine. I kept it under a soft gray cover, waiting for the day I had time to fix her up again. To me, it was sentimental. To Karen Temple, it was a crime. The trouble started at the neighborhood barbecue. I was minding my business near the potato salad when I saw that clipboard approaching like a guided missile. Behind her stood her son, Greg Temple Jr., mid-20s, weak chin, the kind of slouch that screams never worked a day in his life. "Mr. Dillon," she began, with that tone teachers use right before giving detention. "That vehicle in your driveway has been stationary for 3 weeks. The bylaws are very clear about non-operational vehicles." I smiled politely. "It's a project car, Mrs. Temple." Greg perked up. "That's a Boss 429, right? That thing's rare. You ever think about selling?" Karen pressed a manicured hand to his chest. "Greg, we're discussing a violation, not a purchase." Her eyes flicked from me to the car, calculating, not seeing a problem, seeing an opportunity. I told her I'd read the bylaws. She told me I had 7 days. "Paperwork can be persuasive," she said, sweet as bleach. A week later, I found a notice taped to my door. Late fee, signed by the treasurer, name misspelled, naturally. The HOA portal didn't list any such fee. Then another one showed up, then a third. They even hit Mrs. Alvarez down the street, a 78-year-old widow, for $25 and threatened to lien her house. Petty, but petty adds up. Then came the morning everything changed. I was jolted awake by pounding on the front door, so loud it shook the frame. It was barely 7 a.m. Jenna was already up, tea steaming beside her laptop setup. She looked over her monitors, one eyebrow raised. "Showtime?" she mouthed. I nodded, pulled on jeans and a t-shirt, and opened the door. Karen Temple stood there on my porch, raincoat, clipboard, that same tight smile. Greg hovered behind her, excited, like a kid about to watch fireworks. "Mark," she said, dropping the Mr. Dillon this time, like we were old friends, "I'm afraid we've reached the end of the line. Your vehicle is being impounded." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Is that so? And on what grounds?" She tapped the clipboard. "Section 8, paragraph 3C. And funny thing, a friend at the DMV tells me that car isn't currently registered, so technically it's abandoned property. I took the liberty of reporting it as a stolen vehicle stored at this address. The police are on their way." For a second, I actually thought I misheard her. She'd reported my father's car stolen just to have it towed? My pulse spiked, but I kept my face calm. Old cop instinct. Rule 1, never let them see you sweat. "You called the police?" I asked quietly. "Of course, rules are rules." Greg puffed out his chest. "It's the law." Right on cue, 2 patrol cars screamed around the corner. 4 officers jumped out, 2 rookies, 2 veterans. I recognized them immediately. I'd trained one of them myself, Officer Miller, fresh out of the academy. The other was Sergeant Davis, a seasoned guy I respected. Davis approached, hand resting on his holster. "Sir, we got a call about a stolen vehicle at this residence." He looked past me toward the Mustang under its cover. Karen pointed dramatically. "That's it, a vintage Ford Mustang, stolen out of the city last week." Miller looked uncertain. He glanced between us, clearly nervous. Davis stayed stone-faced. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your ID and any paperwork for that vehicle." I nodded slowly. "Sure thing, Sergeant." I reached for my back pocket and caught Miller's hand twitch toward his weapon. Poor kid, still jumpy. I moved slow, steady, no sudden gestures, and pulled out my wallet. The Karen's smile widened. She thought she had me, but instead of a driver's license, I flipped the wallet open to the gold badge inside. The morning sun hit it just right. "Sergeant Davis," I said evenly, "there's been a misunderstanding." For a beat, he didn't process it. Then recognition hit him like a truck. "Chief Dillon?" he stammered. "Sir, I had no idea." Miller froze, eyes wide. "Chief?" Karen's confident smirk melted right off her face, replaced by confusion, then horror. I kept my gaze locked on Davis, but spoke loud enough for her to hear. "Sergeant, it seems Mrs. Temple has made a false report. That's a criminal offense, misuse of 911 and all. You just pulled units off real emergencies for a petty HOA squabble." I turned my head toward Karen. Her posture deflated. The predator had just realized she wasn't the one with teeth. She thought that morning was the end of her little crusade. She had no idea it was only the beginning. When the cruisers rolled off and the curtain stopped twitching, the street looked calm again. But calm in suburbia? That's just camouflage. Karen didn't back off. People like her never do. They reload with paperwork. That night, Jenna and I sat at the kitchen table. She had the HOA portal open on one of her 3 screens, a spreadsheet on another, and the neighborhood map glowing red on the third. "She's already filed a special review request," Jenna said, scrolling. "Claims you're in violation of community harmony standards," whatever that means. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Means she can't stand losing. For a week I tried to ignore it. I washed the car, cut the grass, lived normal. Then the notices started again. New fonts, new fines. One for visual obstruction, another for reflective surfaces exceeding neighborhood tolerance. The kicker? Excessive polish glare, $50. I taped that one to the fridge. Jenna called it art. But the fake tickets were more than a nuisance. They were a message. Karen was saying, "I can make your life miserable one sheet of paper at a time." Then came the chalk. I stepped outside one morning and froze. My driveway looked like a crime scene, bright pink lines tracing the outline of the Mustang, arrows, measurements, and the words "violation area" stenciled across the concrete. Someone had done it at night, kneeling on my property like a vandal with a ruler. Jenna joined me, tea in hand. "This is getting creepy." "Yeah," I said, snapping pictures. "Creepy and stupid. City ordinance says 5 feet from the sidewalk. We're 6.5. I grabbed the hose and washed it all away. As the pink water ran downhill, my neighbor Tony walked by with his beagle. "She's at it again, huh? Last year she tried to find me because my garden gnome wasn't aesthetically compliant." We both laughed, but it didn't feel funny. The next phase wasn't chalk. It buzzed. A faint whir woke me before sunrise one morning, a mosquito-sized hum that grew louder until it rattled the bedroom window. "Drone," Jenna said, half asleep. "Small quad, camera mount." I pulled back the curtain, and there it was, hovering outside like a mechanical hornet, tiny red light blinking. It zipped away when I moved, but came back later that afternoon when Jenna was gardening, circling her like a vulture. It followed me to the mailbox. It wasn't curiosity. It was surveillance. Jenna tracked it faster than I could say warrant. "DJI Mavic 3, she announced, fingers flying over keys. "Signal origin 114 Willow Lane." I didn't need to ask who lived there. Karen Temple. Registered owner? Her son Greg, of course. Jenna's grin turned sharp. 17 overflights in 48 hours. That's stalking territory. I nodded slowly. Good. Let's give them a show. That night, I reprogrammed our irrigation system. Next dawn, when the drone swooped low over the Mustang, 3 sprinkler heads popped up and blasted it with high-pressure jets. The drone wobbled, sputtered, and limped home, trailing water like a wounded bird. It didn't return for 2 days. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. While Karen licked her wounds, I decided to fight her on her favorite battlefield, the bylaws themselves. Most people never read them. I did. All 100 pages. Buried deep in Section 42, landscaping, was a line about only native flora visible from the street. Karen's prized front yard roses? Imported French hybrids. I submitted an anonymous complaint through the HOA portal with photos and a link to the state's native plant list. 2 weeks later, a landscaping crew arrived. By sunset, Karen's award-winning rose bushes were gone, dug up and hauled off while she shrieked on her porch. The neighborhood group chat was on fire. HOA queen fined for illegal flowers. Couldn't have scripted it better. But I wasn't done. I ordered a new car cover, same soft gray, but custom printed across the side in huge friendly letters. "Project in progress. Ask me about it." Now, instead of hiding the Mustang, I turned it into a conversation starter. Neighbors stopped to chat. I told them about my dad, about rebuilding the carburetor, about spring. Karen's symbol of my non-compliance became the neighborhood's favorite story. Every smile I got was one she lost. For a while, life almost felt peaceful again. Until Tony's truck disappeared. He showed up at my door, pale and shaking. "Mark, it's gone. My pickup. Parked it right there last night. Now there's just tire dust." No glass, no drag marks, nothing. Just empty curb. He'd gotten an HOA notice a week earlier about a small oil leak. He cleaned it up, but the paper said if it wasn't fixed, the vehicle could be towed. He thought it was just a threat. I made some calls. City impound, private lots. Nobody had it. Jenna dug into the HOA records. "You're going to want to see this," she said. 10 other residents in the last year. All older cars, all towed for violations. None recovered. She spun the screen toward me. A spreadsheet of complaints and tow authorizations, all signed by the same company, Reliable Roadside Recovery. I'd never heard of them. Jenna pulled the business license. The owner was a holding company. That holding company belonged to, take a wild guess, Oakwood Development, the same firm building Phase 4 of our neighborhood. And who had personally fast-tracked Oakwood's permits through the HOA board? Karen Temple. The petty wars suddenly looked like a smokescreen. They weren't just bullying homeowners, they were running a shakedown. Use bogus violations to get cars towed, sellers strip them, pocket the cash. And the Mustang? That wasn't about compliance. It was about greed. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the glowing spreadsheet. "I think I just found the real engine under this thing," I said. Jenna's eyes narrowed. "You're not talking about your car, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm talking about organized theft hiding behind HOA letterhead." I'd spent my life chasing criminals who thought they were smarter than the law. Karen Temple was about to learn she'd just joined their ranks. What started as chalk lines and drones was about to turn into something much darker, and this time I wasn't calling the cops. I was bringing one. You'd think uncovering a stolen car ring in your own neighborhood would feel exciting. It didn't. It felt sickening. Because the deeper we dug, the more it looked like everyone we waved to on morning walks might have been part of it, or worse, profiting from it. Reliable Roadside Recovery wasn't just some local tow company. It was a ghost. No storefront, no listed number, no staff directory. Just a P.O. box and a disconnected burner phone. Jenna was on fire that night. 3 monitors lit up, her fingers moving like she was disarming a bomb. "Every single tow from this company ends up logged at one address," she said, pointing to the map on her screen. "A self-storage place out by the county line. Secure store." She zoomed in, dozens of pins clustered around one specific unit, C17. They're not junking the cars, they're storing them. The air in the room changed. That's when I called the one guy I trusted to do this off the books, Sergeant Davis. He still felt guilty about the day Karen had the police show up at my door. He'd called it his career's dumbest Tuesday. When I told him what we'd found, he didn't even hesitate. He said, "Tell me where and when." We met that night in my garage, the Mustang sitting silent beside us like a witness. I laid out the plan. We're not kicking down doors, we're taking a look, getting proof. No lights, no sirens, just eyes. Davis nodded. "You know this could blow back on us." I smiled thinly. "Only if we get caught." We rolled out after dark in my old beat-up pickup. Davis had swapped the license plates with a set from one of his department's test vehicles, perfectly legal but untraceable to us for the night. Jenna was our eye in the sky, watching the secure store's live camera feed she'd hacked earlier. Her voice crackled through the earpiece as we approached. "Gate camera looping for 5 minutes. You got a blind spot near the northwest fence. Go now." The gate groaned open, and we slipped inside. The air smelled of wet dust and oil. Rows of identical steel doors lined up like soldiers. Sodium lamps flickered overhead, painting everything in pale orange. Unit C17 was at the far end. Heavy-duty lock, new bolts, a padlock that looked expensive. Davis crouched, pulled a small pick set from his jacket pocket. Old school. "Still got the touch?" I whispered. He smirked. "Depends how much coffee I've had." A minute later, click. The lock gave. We rolled the door up just enough to slip underneath. Inside was pitch black. I clicked on my penlight. The beam cut through the dark and froze on the stripped skeleton of a pickup truck. Tony's truck. The engine block hung on a chain. Doors gone. Dash half dismantled. License plates from 5 states lined the wall like trophies. "Jesus," Davis muttered. On a makeshift workbench sat stacks of paperwork, forged tow authorizations, HOA violation notices, even fake signatures. And there it was, one crisp signature that made my stomach drop. Karen Temple. But that wasn't all. Under the pile was a binder full of blank vehicle titles and a small professional-grade printer, the kind used to create VIN plates. They weren't just stealing cars, they were erasing them. Davis let out a low whistle. They've got the whole operation here, from tow truck to title. I kept flipping through pages until I found the kicker, a receipt book. Each page was a consulting payment to one person, Barry Jenkins, HOA treasurer. Cash payments every week. Not the whole board, I said, just the money guys. Karen and Barry. We snapped photos of everything, cars, paperwork, VIN printer, cash ledger. Didn't touch a thing. Evidence without a warrant is still just trivia. Jenna's voice cut into our earpieces. You've got 2 minutes. Guard's finishing his round. We slipped out fast, replaced the lock, and were gone before the guard's golf cart turned down our aisle. The drive back was quiet. The adrenaline faded, leaving my cold, heavy feeling cops know too well, the one that sits between we did it and we shouldn't have. We had the truth, but not the proof we could use. Everything we just found was technically inadmissible, the kind of evidence that could get a case thrown out and careers ended. Jenna was waiting in the garage when we got back, laptop open. She pulled up the photos and started sorting them into folders like evidence bags. We need a legal entry point, Davis said, rubbing his temples. He was right. We'd broken in, even if for the right reasons. We needed something official, something real. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voice on the other end. Shaky, but familiar. Chief Dillon, it's Officer Miller. The rookie from the HOA call. He sounded nervous. Sir, I've been noticing something weird. That tow company, Reliable Roadside Recovery, their name keeps popping up in complaints all over the county. Cars vanishing, people saying they never get them back. I exchanged a glance with Jenna. The kid had stumbled right into the hornet's nest. Miller, I said carefully, write up everything you've seen, send it directly to me, and listen, do not engage. Understand? Yes, sir. But there was hesitation in his voice. That eager rookie tone, the I want to prove myself. I should have known then he wouldn't listen. That was my mistake. 2 days later, I still hadn't gotten his report. Then just past 9 p.m., my phone rang again. It was Miller, and he sounded terrified. Chief, I think I found them. The tow trucks? They're at the new Oakwood development site. There's a model home at the end of the cul-de-sac. They're using it as a base. Miller, get out of there right now. Tell me your exact location. I'm across the street in the trees. I can see one of the trucks. They're moving a car, blue sedan, plate number... Static. Then nothing. The line went dead. I called back. Straight to voicemail. Jenna's eyes were already wide, fingers flying. She pulled up his GPS ping. He's still at the construction site, but he's not moving. That was the moment everything changed. We weren't just chasing stolen cars anymore. One of my officers was missing. And if I was right about who had him, then Karen's little empire had just crossed the line from fraud to kidnapping. When a cop goes quiet, every second feels like an hour. Jenna had Miller's GPS up on her screens, the little blue dot frozen at the edge of the new Oakwood development. He hasn't moved in 6 minutes, she said, voice tight. 6 minutes can mean a flat tire or a body cooling. I grabbed my maglite, the heavy steel one that doubles as a club, and called Davis. Meet me at the Mill Road entrance, 10 minutes, no sirens, no radio chatter, quiet. Got it, he said without hesitation. Jenna intercepted me at the door. I'm pulling blueprints for the model home, she said, her tone switching to pure command mode. Chestnut floor plan, 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, attached garage. I'll feed you the layout as you move. She looked at me, eyes worried but steady. Bring him back, Mark. I nodded. Keep the line open. The drive-out felt endless. Oakwood's Phase 4 sat half-finished. Muddy streets, skeletal frames of houses, no street lights, the kind of place that swallows sound. Davis's unmarked sedan waited by the entrance, engine idling, headlights off. He got out carrying a tire iron instead of his service weapon. Thought this might be quieter, he said. Good call. We left the vehicles behind and moved on foot. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy and the mud sucked at our boots with every step. Jenna's voice came softly through the earpiece. Model home is the only finished structure on the street. Lights on in the kitchen and upstairs hallway. I'm picking up 2 active cell signals inside. One stationary, first floor bedroom, the other moving. That stationary one had to be Miller. We circled to the back. The sliding glass door was cracked open an inch. Rookie mistake. They felt untouchable out here. Davis and I slipped inside. The place smelled like new paint and cheap staging furniture. Plastic fruit on the counters, fake family photos on the walls. From the living room came the flicker of a television. A huge guy, easily 250, sat on the couch watching an action movie, beer can balanced on his knee. I pointed to myself, then to him. Davis nodded and pointed down the hallway. He'd go for the back room. I moved across the carpet, slow, controlled. The TV masked our steps. The big guy laughed at an explosion on screen and started to reach for another beer. That's when I swung. The mag light connected just behind his ear, solid, clean. He grunted once and collapsed like a dropped coat. "One down," I whispered into the mic. Davis was already at the hallway corner. We could hear voices from the last room. Miller's voice, strained but defiant. "I'm just a cop. I was checking on a suspicious vehicle." Then another voice, lower, meaner. "You're a cop who saw too much. You'll sit tight till the boss decides what to do with you." Jenna's whisper hit my ear. "That's our second cell signal. Same room. Pistol visible in his hand." We couldn't rush it. One twitch and the kid was dead. I looked around. On a side table sat a decorative vase full of fake flowers. Perfect. I caught Davis's eye, mouthed, "Distraction." He nodded, picked up the vase and hurled it down the hallway. Crash! Porcelain exploded against drywall. The thug inside swore. "What was that? Stay here." He moved toward the doorway and right into us. I kicked the door open hard. It slammed him into the frame. The gun skittered across the floor. Davis was on him instantly, pinning him down before he could even blink. I crossed to Miller. He was tied to a chair, face bruised, blood on his lip, but alive. "Easy, kid," I said, cutting him loose. "You okay?" He nodded shakily. "They took my weapon and radio. Said their boss was on his way." "Not tonight," I muttered. We dragged the unconscious thug into the hallway and shoved him next to the other one, still out cold in the living room. Then Davis and I took a second to breathe, just one. "Miller," I said, gripping his shoulder, "here's the story you're going to tell. You were following up on a stolen vehicle tip, got ambushed, called for backup. Understand?" He blinked, then nodded. "Yes, sir." "Good kid. Quick learner." That story would make the whole thing official, legal, a real case. By the time we stepped outside, the first hint of dawn was brushing the horizon. I called dispatch myself. "Officer down, suspects in custody. Request immediate backup and warrant for property search." Within minutes, red and blue lights painted the half-built houses. Davis briefed the responding officers while I stayed with Miller. The paramedics cleaned him up. He'd be fine, shaken, but fine. And now we finally had what we needed, a lawful trigger. 2 suspects tied to a kidnapping, probable cause to search everything. When the warrant came through, the forensic team found a stash of burner phones, Miller's stolen service weapon, and a map marked with tow routes between our neighborhood and Secure Store. Every line led straight back to reliable roadside recovery. And right at the top of that web sat one name circled in red ink. K. Temple. I stared at it, jaw tightening. Karen hadn't just crossed the line, she'd bulldozed over it and built a kingdom on the other side. This wasn't about power anymore. This was about greed, control, and the belief she could get away with anything. Davis came up beside me, holding a recovered Glock. Serials filed off, standard issue. He flipped open a wallet from the second thug. Recognize the name? I did. A known wheelman for a local car theft crew. Karen had moved from petty tyranny to organized crime. "She thought she was queen," I said quietly. "Turns out, she's just another pawn." The look Davis gave me said exactly what we were both thinking. By kidnapping a cop, her crew had just declared war on the entire department. That morning, I stood outside the model home watching the evidence team swarm. The sun was coming up over half-built houses, catching on the red and blue lights. Jenna's voice came softly over the comm. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how fast a neighborhood barbecue turns into a crime scene." She gave a tired laugh. "Welcome to retirement, huh?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah, some people play golf. I fight HOA cartels." But under the humor, I felt something else. Resolve. Because now, we had them. Everything we'd gathered off the record could finally see daylight. And once daylight hits corruption, it burns. We'd cracked the door open on Karen's empire. Next, we were going to blow it wide open. One forged notice, one bank transfer, and one very public takedown at a time. You'd think after rescuing a kidnapped officer, the story would slow down. It didn't. It just changed gears. The model home bust gave us the spark we needed. Now the department could finally touch everything we'd found in the shadows. And once we started pulling threads, Karen's whole tapestry began to unravel. Jenna turned our kitchen into mission control. Coffee, half-eaten sandwiches, wires everywhere. Her monitors looked like NASA for suburban crime. Davis came by off duty, sleeves rolled up, paperwork stacked to his chin. "Kidnapping warrant opened the door," he said. "We can search everything connected to those 2 thugs, and by extension, the tow company." "Perfect," I said. "Let's see what falls out." By sunrise, we had warrants for Reliable Roadside Recovery's office, which turned out to be a single rented room above a laundromat. The place smelled like bleach and bad decisions. Detectives hauled out boxes of fake HOA tickets, forged tow orders, burner phones, even a cheap laptop with the company's logo as wallpaper. Jenna cracked its password in 4 minutes flat. "Password 123, she muttered, rolling her eyes. "Criminal masterminds." Inside were spreadsheets. Every vehicle they'd taken, the addresses, the violations, and where each car ended up. It was a confession disguised as bookkeeping. She found another folder marked HOA. Inside, templates for violation letters, complete with official logo. The metadata matched print jobs from the HOA printer. I called in a favor at the forensics lab. I said, "Run a toner comparison, those fake tickets versus whatever's sitting in the HOA printer." 3 hours later, the tech called back, voice excited. "Perfect chemical match, Chief. Same batch, same machine." There it was, physical proof that Karen's office was ground zero for every fake ticket in town. Next came the money. Jenna dove into the bank records like a shark scenting blood. With the warrant signed, she mapped transactions across 3 accounts: Oakwood Development, the HOA's general fund, and 2 private ones: Barry Jenkins, the treasurer, and Karen Temple herself. The pattern was almost elegant. Oakwood funded it, Barry laundered it, the tow crew did the dirty work, and Karen supplied the victims under the cover of bylaws. It was neat, greedy, and about to collapse. But there was still one ghost in the system: Karen's son, Greg. His name wasn't on the bank trails, not on any emails or logs. Still, every instinct I had told me he was the spark. He'd wanted my Mustang from day one. Karen might have been ruthless, but her weak spot was always him. If she built this empire for anyone, it was for Greg, to hand him everything he couldn't earn. And that gave me an idea. We could arrest her quietly, or we could expose her publicly, turn her own arrogance into the trap. "Public means clean," Davis said when I pitched it. "Media, witnesses, no way she claims setup." Jenna nodded slowly. "Then we make it theatrical." The annual HOA Gala was 3 days away, the crown jewel of Karen's little kingdom. Theme: Building Our Future. Sponsors: Oakwood Development. Guest of honor: Karen Temple herself. It was the perfect stage. I decided to bait the hook with the one thing she couldn't resist: my dad's car. For 2 nights, Jenna and I worked in the garage like a pair of spies. She installed a micro GPS inside the Mustang's dashboard and hid a voice-activated transmitter behind the old AM radio. "Military grade," she said, "filters out engine noise. We'll hear every word." I handled the psychological part. We started a rumor, through Tony naturally, that I'd finally given up, that I was sick of the HOA war and planning to sell the Mustang after the weekend. Tony didn't disappoint. By the next morning, half the neighborhood knew. I made it look real, took photos, printed a fake for sale sign, left it under the windshield with a burner phone number. The bait shimmered like chrome in sunlight. Jenna traced Karen's emails through the HOA server. She'd already drafted a press release calling my car a community donation for the new neighborhood patrol program. The arrogance was breathtaking. "She actually thinks she can steal it and claim it's charity," Jenna said, shaking her head. "She's about to donate herself to the county jail," I replied. The night before the gala, we set the final piece. I accidentally left the garage door open a few inches, the spare key to the Mustang hanging on a hook, just inside. An obvious rookie mistake. Karen would see it as a sign from the universe. Meanwhile, Davis arranged a quiet backup team. 4 plainclothes officers parked a block away with our live feed. Everything was ready. The gala night hit with perfect cinematic timing. Dark sky, heavy rain drumming on the white event tent pitched over the community green. Bad jazz hummed through the speakers, mixing with thunder. Karen shimmered in a silver dress, basking in praise from the Oakwood CEO at her table. Barry Jenkins looked like he'd sweat through his tux. Greg? Nowhere in sight. Jenna and I played our roles, neighbors in nice clothes, drinks in hand, blending into the crowd. My earpiece crackled softly. "Garage door sensor tricked," Jenna whispered, eyes on her phone. "Car's moving," she said a moment later, heading toward the green. Right on schedule. 10 minutes later, Karen tapped the microphone on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special surprise tonight." The tent flaps opened. Headlights cut through the rain. And there it was, my dad's Mustang, candy apple red, rolling slowly into the tent. Behind the wheel, grinning like he'd won the lottery, Greg Temple. The crowd gasped. They all recognized that car. Karen spread her arms. Thanks to my wonderful son and our partners at Oakwood Development, this beautiful vehicle has been donated for our new neighborhood security program. That's when Jenna tapped her phone. The tent speakers crackled, and Karen's own voice filled the room, recorded from the Mustang's cabin mic. He's gone. Good. The key's on the hook. Drive it straight to the gala. We'll file it as a donation tomorrow. The crowd froze. Karen's smile died mid-applause. I stepped forward. That mic picks up lies in stereo, I said. More audio played. Greg talking to himself on the drive over. Stupid old cop thinks he's so smart. This car's mine now. The Oakwood CEO tried to slip out a side door, but Davis's team intercepted him, calm and quiet. Greg panicked, slammed the gas. The Mustang roared, tires spinning on wet vinyl, fishtailing straight toward the stage. I vaulted over a table of hors d'oeuvres and yanked open the driver's door, dragging him out by his tuxedo collar. The car stalled inches from Karen's podium, idling like a growling witness. And then the tent flooded with red and blue. Davis strode in, voice booming. Karen Temple, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and grand theft auto. The cuffs clicked, and the queen of the cul-de-sac finally lost her crown. But the show wasn't over yet, because when one empire falls, the people who built it start talking, and the secrets they spill can burn an entire neighborhood to the ground. When the lights of the gala faded and the last squad car rolled away, Maple Grove finally fell silent. But it wasn't peace. It was the heavy quiet that follows a storm. Karen Temple's silver dress had been replaced with an orange jumpsuit. Her son Greg was booked on grand theft auto and resisting arrest. Barry Jenkins flipped within 48 hours, trading his loyalty for a plea deal and a shorter sentence. And Oakwood Development? The morning news showed their executives doing the walk of shame into unmarked cars, jackets over their faces. Turns out those community donations stretched far beyond our neighborhood. They'd been running the same scam across 3 counties. It was over. But in my gut, I knew stories like this never end clean. There's always a mess to mop up. A week later, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. They invited every homeowner. For once, the folding chairs were full. I sat in the back beside Jenna, sipping burnt coffee and letting the new interim president, Tony, of all people, run the show. He banged a gavel against the table. First order of business, abolishing Section 8, Paragraph 3C. The room erupted in applause. Someone behind me whispered, "Guess we can finally park our trucks again." Jenna smirked. Democracy, one clause at a time. They passed new transparency rules, voted for an external audit, and appointed an oversight committee. Simple things. But in neighborhoods like this, simple things are revolutions. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly. I moved here for quiet, I said. Turns out peace isn't about silence. It's about knowing the people around you aren't out to ruin your day. So let's keep it that way. The crowd nodded, a ripple of quiet agreement. It wasn't a speech for the news. It was for them, the ordinary folks who just wanted to live without fear of a clipboard. Back home, I opened the garage. The Mustang sat gleaming under the fluorescent light, restored to its rightful place. Fresh coat of wax, new plates, a little scar on the front bumper from the gala, a reminder that even legends take hits. I ran my hand along the fender. "Dad," I said softly, "we made it." Jenna appeared beside me, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "So, what now?" she asked. I smiled. "Maybe drive. No destination. Just drive." She nodded, then set her cup on the hood. "You know, the detective in you never retired. You just changed addresses." I laughed. "Guess that's true, but next time, let's move somewhere without an HOA." 2 months later, the trial began. Karen sat at the defense table, posture perfect, face powdered, pretending control. Her lawyer spun excuses, administrative confusion, miscommunication, a conspiracy against her. But the evidence was airtight. Jenna's recordings played for the jury, every smug word echoing through the courtroom. The VIN printer, the forged signatures, the bank transfers, all laid bare. And when Barry testified, he buried her with one line. She said homeowners were sheep, that they needed a shepherd who wasn't afraid to take a little extra. Karen didn't flinch, not once. But when the verdict came, guilty on all counts, I caught her looking at me. Not anger, not regret, just disbelief that her kingdom had fallen to someone she once called non-compliant. The judge sentenced her to 12 years. Greg got 3 and community service. Oakwood lost every contract they'd ever touched. Justice isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just paperwork finally filed by the right people. Life in Maple Grove slowly reset. Neighbors started talking again, not whispering. Kids played on lawns that used to be violation zones. Even the HOA newsletter changed its tone. Now it started with "Good morning" instead of "Reminder." One afternoon, Tony stopped by holding a clipboard, a friendly one this time. "Hey Mark," he said, "we're thinking of organizing a car show for the neighborhood. Thought maybe you'd bring the Mustang?" I raised an eyebrow. "A car show? That's dangerously close to an HOA event." He laughed. "Yeah, but this one doesn't come with fines." I agreed. Why not? Sometimes you reclaim a place, not by leaving it, but by rewriting its story. The show was small, 10 cars, some kids selling lemonade, music from a Bluetooth speaker. When I parked the Mustang, people gathered around. They asked questions about engines, paint, history. I told them about my dad, about patience, about how some things are worth fighting for, even if they start with a clipboard and a threat. Jenna took photos. At one point, she leaned close and whispered, "You know this would make a great story for YouTube?" I chuckled. "Who'd believe it?" She said, "Everyone, because they've all met a Karen." We laughed, the kind of laugh that finally feels safe. Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed and the sun dipped behind the rooftops, I sat on the front steps, the Mustang gleaming in the driveway. Jenna joined me, resting her head on my shoulder. For the first time in months, the only sound was crickets. No drones, no notices, no fake smiles. I thought about everything we'd been through, the pettiness, the greed, the danger, and I realized something. In all my years as a cop, I'd chased thieves, liars, killers, people who knew they were bad. But the most dangerous kind? The ones who convinced themselves they're right. Karen Temple had believed she was protecting her neighborhood. She'd just forgotten what protect really meant. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No logo, no threat. Just a single note from the county impound lot. They'd recovered 9 stolen vehicles thanks to our investigation. All returned to their owners. I pinned that note on the garage wall, right above my workbench. Not as a trophy, but as proof that sometimes doing the right thing starts small. Like telling someone no. Like refusing to bend to a bully in pearls. That night, I took the Mustang out. Windows down, engine rumbling, air crisp with the smell of rain. The streetlights rolled past like quiet applause. Jenna's voice came through the radio. She'd synced her phone to the old speakers. "Where to, Chief?" she teased. I smiled, watching the road unfold ahead. "Anywhere but the HOA," I said. The car roared, and for the first time in a long time, the sound wasn't defiance. It was freedom. Because peace isn't about where you live. It's about what you're willing to fight for when someone tries to take it away.